All right, everybody, I want to welcome you to the first of the Kabbalistic Pathworking classes. We're going to be talking about the first path, the path of Tao, traveling from Malkut to Yesod. And to begin with, I want to mention right from the start, because someone was asking me some questions on Facebook today. I don't spend that much time on Facebook, but I ended up spending about 20 minutes going back and forth with this person. If you're looking for the ancient, traditional, rabbinical Qabalah spelled with a K and two B's that really has a lot to do with the Bible and Hebrew and the customs of the ancient Israelites, this is not the class for you. This is a class that has very little to do with that. This class is about the magical Qabalah, and while there is certainly certain aspects of Christian Qabalah that were created as an attack on Judaism, for the most part, the magical Qabalah was actually a way of integrating a number of different things. Christianity, which most modern occult magicians have largely abandoned that particular portion of it, for good or ill. Judaism and the teachings of the Old Testament, and Hermeticism, the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus. Well, I'm restarting the recording, so hopefully the issues that we've been having will cease and everything will be fine going into the future. Is everyone getting me? Okay, so I was explaining that the Qabalah that we're going to be working with is a magical Qabalah. Its roots are largely in the Renaissance, a little bit before the Renaissance, but that, you know, the Bruno and Dee and various other people are kind of the source of this material, but largely, ultimately, it comes pretty much from the Golden Dawn, which was a 19th century group. Long ago, I realized that a lot of the Golden Dawn's work was largely misled in some ways, that they could have connected with a truer Kabbalistic tradition that they did. But I still think that there's a lot of magical validity in the work that they did, and honestly, I think that the effort necessary to try and rectify it with the Hebrew Qabalah or to try and come up with a new, entirely new magical approach to it is pointless. I think that as it stands, it's a strong system, and I have had a lot of useful results in my life from it, and I hope that you will too. Now, that being said, what we're going to be studying is not exactly what the Golden Dawn taught either. It's my own take on that, from my own inspirations and from my own, experiences of the divine that have guided me to present this material as I'm presenting it in this course and in my recordings. The basis of path working within the Western magical tradition is a fairly modern innovation, and it's got several different ways in which it's approached. One of the ways that it seems to be the most prevalent is a sort of astral tourism, where you're kind of presented with a number of symbols that relate to the kind of magical symbolism between the things. Let's say between Malkut and Yesod is the path of Tao, and that's associated in the tarot with the tarot card, the world. Malkut is Earth. Yesod is the moon in the magical Qabalah, and so the symbology is largely maybe mythological in relation to the different kinds of image sets that relate to that. But there's also another kind of path working that kind of tries to connect you with the energies and the moods of those things to kind of help you to have some kind of a transformation. my approach to pathworking, and I think most of you here right now have actually listened to this first pathworking, it sounds like. So you know, my approach is somewhat of a combination of those things, and also adds another element that I don't think that really most people put into pathworkings, which is that I give you a spiritual challenge within the recording itself. I say, you know, take a look at this aspect of yourself and examine it, and make a change right here and now as you're listening to this recording. That's rather unique in pathworking recordings. I've listened to 2 other versions of pathworkings, and I've read through a third version, and I think there may be a couple more out there that people have created that I'm not as familiar with. But for the most part, they fall into that, you know, just sort of like, here's some symbols, you know, see how you react to these symbols. Whereas I kind of ask you to look at something that has to do with the spiritual path, specifically relating to that path along the tree, as I understand it. Now, my particular interest in the tree is largely a psychic tree, the different kinds of psychic experiences that a person can have, and by that I mean sort of inner soul experiences. I'm not as concerned with greater macrocosmic issues, although I think that there is a lot of magical potential, particularly actually in the 30-second path. It has to do with manifestation, and it has to do specifically with those things that we put in between ourselves and manifestation. There's a lesson to be learned if you listen to the track and explore the meditation that's going on there. You will discover a lesson in relation to manifestation if you really pay attention to what's going on. And I don't want to spoil that by just hand-holding you through it. But the basic essence of it is that what we feel in our bodies defines our reality for ourselves. And we can feel good or we can feel bad. We can feel fearful or we can feel confident. Those feelings we create in our body, and our perception of the universe follows suit. So that's kind of the background for this particular one. But let me take a step back to the generalities of these recordings and this pathworking system in general, which is that I've made a lot of choices in relation to background sounds. There are a lot of intoned, vibrated names. There are a lot of specific frequencies of sounds and binaural beats built into it. And these have been chosen by me very specifically, mostly from sort of a right-brained, creative, spiritual, inspired sense rather than a really logical sense. But they do align pretty well with what most people do with sounds and their relationships to the planets and the elements and so forth. There are different systems out there, of course, and the idea of connecting music with the planets and with the spiritual pathworking and so forth actually goes back to the Renaissance and all the way back to ancient Greece, actually, although we don't have a complete picture of exactly what they intended by those things. I'm getting a question. I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at what the question is. Sky is asking, do you use NLP in the sense you're telling us sentences that our conscious mind doesn't understand, but our subconscious does register, like Taryn Brown? Well, yes, I do to an extent within them. I certainly am using some suggestive language, and the more open that you are to the suggestive language that's in the recordings, the more benefit you're going to get from them. I don't have any suggestions in there that aren't in your best interest. I'm not going to underline all that are in there, but there are a lot of elements of them that are leading in that sense of using language and marking things and so forth. But one of the most important parts of that is actually built into the sonics of them. The actual different tones that I'm using and the different Hebrew names and so forth, those are actually creating anchors to specific things. And so as you do the path workings, you are actually creating a connection with those energies and those sounds that then if you use some of my other things like my invocations and those are, you're going to have a new and different experience of them because you will have built in these sort of spiritual experiences that you've created using these recordings. So there's a synergy that's involved that's very powerful. One of my favorite parts of these recordings is right at the beginning. There's this Kabbalistic invocation that I do right from the start, and it's in every single one. And basically, it's a wonderful induction and full of just very positive, bringing various energies into your life and into your consciousness, and basically drawing the divine down into yourself and bringing yourself into a state of divine action if you choose to partake of that. The more that you let that in, the more that you're going to obviously experience it in a very powerful and palpable way. And I should mention that in the recording I suggest that you say it out loud, and I do. I suggest that you say the invocation out loud, but I also want you to be yielding to the experience of it. I don't want you to just mouth the words that I'm saying to you. I want you to live those words as you're hearing and then repeating them. I want you to really engage that experience as much as possible. So when I say my consciousness arises as a serpent, I want you to, as much as possible, connect with your root, with your core, and feel a serpent of fire arising out of yourself up towards the heavens to meet with the highest, with the Ein Sof. I want you to experience that inner awakening just with those words as much as possible. And obviously, you're going to experience that more and more powerfully the more often that you use this stuff and the more that you really put yourself into it. One of the things that I think is interesting is that a lot of people, when they listen to a recording a few times, they start to feel like, well, I've listened to that part a number of times, so I've kind of been waiting for that to get past that to the new and interesting part. But really, the stuff that you're more familiar with, because every single one of the recordings has that particular invocation, that's an opportunity. Once you know that well, you can really put your soul essence into it and really make it a powerful and beautiful experience each time that you use it. In creating the core of these path workings, it's a very eclectic core. It's not just from Qabalah. It's not just from Hermeticism. There's elements of Buddhism. There's elements of Taoism. there's elements of just sort of New Age self-helpism in it. There's a lot of stuff that's built into the core structures that still align with the basic path. Here in Malkut, we're in the physical world. We're experiencing things as they are. In Keter, we're experiencing a unitive connection with the divine. Or we are the divine. That there's the divine consciousness, and there's nothing else. So the pathway between those things is well mapped by the Tree of Life, and I think the magical version of the Tree of Life does it at least as well as the Lurianic version of the tree or any others. And each of the things that you're going to experience in these path workings is a step toward the divine. Now, in this first one, the 32nd path, that step is moving internal from the external world to the internal and confronting the felt sense experiences and the imagery that comes when you move internal. And the first thing that you encounter is your resistance and your fear and all the things that happen. Now, anytime that you're doing any kind of psychic or inner exploration, you start there and you confront that experience anew. Like let's say you're trying to learn how to become a dowser, and so you get some dowsing rods and you go out and you start trying to feel where the water is. The first thing that you encounter is oh, I'm not good enough to do this. I don't know how. I'm not smart enough. I don't feel it. Those fears are the first thing that comes up, and that is the path of Tao to a large extent. Now, at least in the sense that we're exploring it in this program. So what I've tried to do is to give Sky is asking just fears or all emotions. It's really all emotions, but fear is on the scale of things. You've got happy bliss, and you've got terror, and so most of the time when we're beginning anything, we start more in the fear category and move more towards the happy bliss territory in general. But you can begin something like a drug or something like that, and it can just immediately seem blissful, and you only get into and you actually do it in reverse most of the time, and you get into the scarier territory as you're going along. The basis of this 30-second path is, on these felt sense experiences, and kind of an idiosyncratic interpretation of the four elements, which are fire, water, air, and earth, which are very. Let me show you. Okay, so well, first of all, this is the Hebrew letter Tau, and you should probably print it from the internet or write it from a book and memorize what it looks like, because when you're doing the path working, there's a point where you're supposed to visualize the letter, and knowing what it looks like helps to do that. Otherwise, you are like, I don't know what I'm doing. Something weird just came up. But the basis of the path from a magical perspective, symbolically, is largely the tarot card, the universe, or the world. So I'm going to show you some images of that. To begin with, let me show you. I guess I'll just show you mine. This is a painting that I did, and so you see you've got this lady here who's kind of the anima mundi. You've got this round shape around here, and then you've got the four cherubic beasts here. And this is Tabby Cicero's version of that. They're fairly similar in some ways. This is the Rider-Waite version of the same. You can see the family resemblance, certainly. This is Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot version of the same. And then, I guess for a different perspective, here's I like this guy's stuff, even though it's a little bit odd, but what is this guy's name? I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Robert Place. This is the alchemical tarot. You can still see the connection. He's got the elements as elements rather than as angelic or cherubic beasts. And he's got a serpent, and he's got the virginal thing. Now, there are some traditions that say that the being in the picture is not actually female, but it's an androgynous figure. That the phallus is covered, but I don't see any sign of that in any of the art. But I've certainly read that in a couple of places. Now, what we see there is the image of a female, sort of a dancer, surrounded by a garland, and then surrounded by the four elements. And so the path of Tao is the connection point between the physical world and the dream world, the world of visions, the world of the astral. And so what you confront there is the things that sort of stand between you and the astral, and those are your thoughts, your feelings, all those things. Usually, though, the things that are stopping you from getting more into that astral place are your fears. So the actual exercise that is done in this, I know that you guys have all listened to this already, but I want to kind of go over it a little bit more explicitly here in this time together. and then maybe it'll be more clear for you in working with the recording over this week. Before I do that, let me actually just mention what I'd like the structure of this class to be like. Basically, what I'd like to have happen is for this week to be devoted to the 30-second path. I know some of you have already listened to it. You may have listened to it more than once even, but I'd like you to listen to it a few more times and really try and work with that energy, work with the exercise, and really try and understand something about yourself and something about those two levels, the level of dreams and visions and the level of physical manifestation in both directions. You know, there's dreams that we bring into reality, and then there's reality moving into dreams. Both of those have to do with the path of Tao. Each week, what I'd like to have happen is for us to discuss for 15 to 20 minutes or longer, depending on what people have to say. Discuss the previous week's path. So next week we'll actually discuss the 30-second path again for a little while before moving on to the 31st path. And then we can discuss the 31st path, and then you can work on that. For that week, you'll work on the 31st path, and so on as we work through all of them, all the 22 recordings. Now, this is a free class. If you don't want to purchase the recordings that go along with it, you can just sort of I'm going to explain to you the core principles of it. So if you want to just do that on your own and not listen to my recordings, that's fine too. I think my recordings are pretty awesome, and they're integrated into this whole at this point where there's a lot of recordings that kind of all feed off one another. Like the Creating the Sunchild ones, they have all the same tones and all the same stuff in them as well. So anytime you're working with those and bringing your energy into those, you're going to just be creating all these connections with them, and it's really powerful stuff. I mean, I listen to this, and it's just really it blows my mind, and I have to not sound too arrogant or anything, but I can't, a lot of it it came through me more than that I created it. So I can say that I'm amazed by it without sounding too arrogant, hopefully. So if you want to work with it on your own, go ahead. I don't want to force people to buy things from me. It's up to you. In doing them, you can ritualize it more or less. I actually sometimes listen to these recordings, and I'll be walking. I'll do a walking meditation listening to them, and that works just fine for me. I think that sitting meditation can be useful for them too. But there's no hard and fast rules of how to approach them. Thank you, Eric. If you want to make more of an affair out of doing them, you can light candles and you can burn incense that's specifically related to them. Now there are three different specific energies in each one. There's where the path begins. So in this case, the 30-second path, that's Malkut. So you listen. If you wanted to burn some earth incense or something like that, you could. There's the path itself, which for Tao is related to the planet Saturn. So there's Saturnian energy, and then there's Yesod, where the path leads to. Now, personally, I would recommend candles and incense that relate to where the path leads to. Just unless you happen to be in a situation where you have a group of people who are going to support you in your work and are going to move the essences and the lights and stuff that relate to each of the phases. If you can arrange that for yourself, where someone is, changing the incense for you partway through this stuff, by all means you can go through it. But the where you are heading on the purpose of the recording. So in other words, for this recording, it would be most appropriate to burn like a lunar or anything related to Yesod, which would be sort of virginal, lunar kind of sense, My incense that I use is kind of it's got a lotus blossom, gardenia, camphor, and some sandalwood in it. So it's got a sweet but innocent kind of smell to it that kind of brings me to a lunar place. Sky says, listening to a recording right before bed is great and makes a productive use of sleep. Sure, listening to it before bed can be useful, although sometimes you can fall asleep when you do that. So I mean, that's really going to be, for each person to decide. I actually think in some ways that I've done too good a job on some of my recordings, where I actually, it's sometimes hard to kind of maintain any sense of lucidity in them, which I really don't want you to be entirely going into an out of conscious state. I want you to be in a loose and flowing state, but still maintaining enough integrity to kind of go through the exercise. Juan, what do you mean? Can you use water? You mean like holy water? Anointing yourself? Water incense. Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's very similar to lunar incense. Absolutely. I know what I was going to say. The actual exercise itself, the sort of the core component of this, has to do with exploring a specific thing that is a hang-up, and it happens twice in the recording. And basically, the first one is intended to be something that is between you and either exploring the path, or it can even be something that's practical in your life, something that you're fearful about. Let's say you have a goal to become a great tennis player, but sometimes you have trouble motivating yourself to go and practice. So that there's a felt sense state in there that you can explore there, or it can be about practice, just your spiritual practice, things that kind of keep you away from your spiritual practice, or things that you're afraid of in your spiritual practice. That's the first one. And the second one that's within the tunnel itself is things relating specifically to the path itself, to the path that's ahead of you, fears that you have about the nature of the path to the divine, fears that you have about yourself, your worthiness, those sorts of things. Those specific kinds of felt sense experiences that are blocking you in those two things, either on the outside going in, or once you're in, moving forward. And specifically, what I want you to do, and maybe perhaps it's the easiest, I'll explain it rationally afterwards, but let's just go ahead and do it for a moment. So what I'd like everyone to do is just go ahead and close your eyes. And as I was talking, most likely you guys thought of a few things that jumped into your minds as being relevant to what I was talking about. So I want you to just go ahead and use one of those. And so focus on something specific that is a fear or a trepidation or something that you're struggling with, and the feelings that you have towards it. Now, those feelings are a set of experiences. And the most basic way that we can explore those actual experiences, not the labels that you have for it. The labels are fine, and you can deal with those later, but the actual experience is something that is either a heavy feeling or a light feeling. And you can define that for yourself. Is the feeling that you have towards this heavy, or is it light? Does it feel like something that's floating away, like pulling you upward? Or does it feel like something that's weighing you down? And that relates to the element of earth. You can also explore whether it's hard or soft in this area as well. But particularly the mass of it, I want you to explore. Now, once you've got a sense of the mass, I want you to explore the volume of it. Does it take up your whole chest cavity? Is it something that just occupies your right shoulder? Is it something that's only at the pit of your stomach? How big is it? How much space does it take up within you, and where is that space? Where is that feeling in your body? And once you've got that, I want you to explore the temperature of it. Is it hot or is it cold? And here you can also explore whether it's moist or dry, but just really focus in on hot or cold for now. That's the easiest. Is it something that feels warm, like it's a heat inside of you, or is it something that feels cold, like like something that's refrigerating inside of you? Finally, is it something that's moving, or is it something that's very, very still? Now, here's the interesting thing. You've got a sense of this thing inside of you that you used to have a specific name for. The name is insignificant at this point because it's just really a series of sensations, of experiences in your inner body that are in between the physical and the mental and the spiritual. It's not a physical thing at all. It's actually just an idea plane thing. It's an experience that you're having. It doesn't actually exist in the physical world. It's a felt sense that you have. Now, the thing is, if you continue to explore it, just continue to feel it, it's going to start to change. It's actually going to shift into other things. It's going to disappear sometimes. It's going to move into different parts of your body. It may become heavier, or it may become lighter. It's a moving thing. It's not a constant. So not only does it not really have any significance in its name, but it also doesn't have any real significance in its essence. It's something that's coming through and moving away. It's a temporary phenomenon. And the other part of it that I want you to understand is that you can actually move it out of yourself. Just take the whole felt sense experience and move it, say, a foot outside of yourself. Just look at it there. You can move it over to the left and over to the right. You can move it up above you. You can move it behind you. You can launch it into the sun and never think about it again. So, that's the basic core experience of this recording, is an awareness of those experiences within yourself. Now, combined with that, you guys can open your eyes now if you want. And like I said, I'll go over that again in a logical way in a moment. But combined with that sort of inner psychic experience is a number of mythological elements. The Path of Tao, traditionally in magical parlance, involves a journey down a dark and scary tunnel with various monsters that you face along the way. In this particular version, you also encounter the dancer from the card, who is the soul of the world, the soul of manifestation, and she kind of interacts with you a bit in that process of, and is connected to that process of being aware of that felt sense stuff. So basically, what that technique involves is just becoming aware of what you are actually feeling in your body. And this is easier for some people than it is for others. Some people really have a hard time feeling what's going on in their bodies. And so this is kind of a new direction for you if that's something that you aren't used to. But being aware of this stuff allows you to be much more conscious of your experience of the world and what triggers you in various ways. So what I'd like you to do is not only to use this recording a few times, but also try and be aware of this stuff out in the world. When you're encountering something that upsets you or starts to make you angry or fearful or outraged or scared or comical, take a moment and discover what's actually going on inside your body at those times. It's a sea of sensations. And they will take control of you and push you in various ways if you're not conscious of them. The more conscious you are of them, the more control you have over your experience of the universe. So the 4 elemental categories that I've used are, for Earth, the mass, the heaviness or lightness of it, the weight of it. For water, the volume, the space that it occupies, where it fits in your actual physical body from the top of your head. Most people don't experience a lot of emotion in their legs, but maybe you do, so I'll say to the bottoms of your feet. The air element is the movement of it, the flow, whether it's something that shifts from space or just sits stagnant. And the fire element is the temperature, whether it's hot or cool on the scale. Does everyone understand that? Excuse me. Okay, so one more thing about the recordings in general, and then I want to talk about the sunchild for a few minutes, and then I'm going to let you guys go for tonight. And I hope that all of you will come back next week, and we'll continue this discussion with the next path as well. There's an element of angelology in these paths that I have kept in. Originally, I wasn't planning to, but then I realized that I was interested in creating invocations for these various angelic beings, and that it would be sort of silly not to take advantage of their presence within these path workings. So they kind of exist as a almost like a marker in these path workings. They don't play a significant role in them from a story perspective, but they're present. And the reason for their presence is that I want those energies to start being available to you in invocations. So by bringing them into the path working, that's more making that available for you. So that's the reason for their presence, and the reason for their sort of background existence within it is simply that I want them to be there, but I don't want them to sort of steal focus from the rest of the story, which is your own spiritual growth. Some path workings become very involved with, this angel leads you to this window, and you pick up this chalice and look into it, and I didn't want to get into that too much, since it doesn't really amount to much personally from your own spiritual growth perspective. So now we're going to do 22 weeks of this. I hope that all of you, and there's actually at least 10 to 15 more of you that weren't able for various reasons to come tonight, and hopefully the recording is going to work out so that people can actually enjoy it. I'm going to lead you through all 22 of these. Now, these first ones, it's relatively easy. Anyone, you have all experienced the first few paths, certainly in your life, if you've done any sort of introspection whatsoever. We're going to get into a much more advanced space, and I don't want you to feel alarmed by that or feel that you're not allowed to do it, because you're going to get to that space at the level at which you can. And maybe that will be full. Maybe you'll, become Sadiqim at the end of this this course. I don't know, and I'm not going to tell you, that you're not allowed to do them or anything like that. So I want you to explore the highest paths, even if they don't mean anything to you at the time. They're still going to impact you in a spiritual sense and have a growth result on you. And like I said, they're also going to open up certain magical pathways that otherwise, we really don't have access to other than through things like this artificial system here. So, but I want to talk about the sunchild for a couple of minutes. How many of you have been participating in that, at least have decided to participate in that this year? the sea of yeses. I'm not sure what's what. How many of you don't know what I'm talking about when I say the sunchild? I feel like I've seen most of you who have downloaded that recording at one time or another. Burrick doesn't know what it is. Okay, I'm going to send you an email, Burrick. It's a basically what I did was using these same principles, I created a series of recordings that kind of relate to the seasonal changes, and I just went with the 4 ones that have to do with the solar cycle rather than worrying about those in-between ones, the Halloween and Candlemas and those sorts of things. Although certainly there's a work to be done there too if you wanted to. But so basically, it's a battery. It's a magical battery that it's actually the sunchild and the earth wife of the sunchild. Their sort of adventures together, and basically it's a magical tool and a sort of a mythical way of engaging the year. So it's just beginning right now. A new cycle, creating the sunchild. I just did it today myself. And again, it can be done in a very ritualized way. You can, for those of you who have, done my new hermetic stuff, you can set out the little altar of the elements and do the whole, Eucharist thing, and then do the sunchild invocation instead of doing the initiation portion of it, or you can just listen to it. I have tended for the past several years to just listen to them. Sometimes I'll light some candles and make a little bit of a to-do of it, but it's something that it's self-contained, and it basically creating the sunchild, you kind of rise up into the atmosphere, and there you find this globe of light that has all these tendrils that connect all the people that are working on it, and you basically put some energy into the thing, and it turns into it gradually turns into this child, this solar child, and that connects with the sort of solar myths of this time of year, that the rebirth of the sun. Obviously the story of Jesus is the most famous of those, but there are quite a number of them, and it basically connects. It connects each of us with one another so that we can kind of give each other energy and take energy as we need it throughout the year, and it's sort of a magical battery that you basically just when you want to use some of the energy, you simply visualize the sunchild and draw some of that energy into yourself. And if you want to give some energy to it, you can. Although I think that really the creation process does enough for the year for the part. So it's an interesting tool that I've enjoyed working with for the past several years. So I'd love for people to participate in that as well. I see people downloading it all the time, so I don't. It's a chaotic thing. I don't have any control over it. The first year that we did it, I think there were 100 or more people that did it. I'm not sure if it's grown or shrunk or what's happened since then. So, does anyone have questions about either the 30-second pathworking, the pathworking classes in general, or the sunchild? Okay, so I've got 3 questions. Rurik has said, and I think he's saying, I think he's got a compound word going on there, which should we listen to before, after, or both? And so the thing about the sunchild is that it's specific to the solstice, so I would listen to that within the next 3 days, just so that you're kind of within that solstice window. I think the time between now and Christmas is, all the solstice. As far as we're concerned, we're not totally basing the whole thing on the exact moment of the solstice. So that should be listened to, relatively soon. The path workings, I would try and listen to that 2 to 5 times within the next week, depending on how you can fit it in. 2 is fine. If that's what you can handle, that's perfectly okay. Now, Sky says, do you have a mudra to download from the Sunchild? When you say a mudra, do you mean a hand gesture? No, but I do have a symbol that I haven't previously shared, and I will share it. It's not. I haven't not shared it because I was keeping it to myself. I just haven't. It just hasn't been the right time. But I think that maybe this year would be a good time to do it. And so there's a symbol that you can use as a visual anchor for it. And I'll put that out there. Wow, I got a good response. And so TV asks, when do you know it's time to go on to the next Pathworking? Well, okay, so within this course, we're going to do all 22 of the ones that, now, there are 32 paths. Some people do 32 Pathworkings. The way that I've created these recordings, I basically take you into the next Sephra. Each recording goes into so I mean, they basically are already incorporated into it. So there are 22 of them rather than 32. So this week, I want you to work on the Path of Tao. I know some of you have probably already been working on the Path of Tao. However, I want you to work on it with the more understanding that I've hopefully imparted to you in this class. And I actually think that it's a fantastic recording and one that I could listen to 1,000 times. Now, again, that sounds arrogant, but I think that it's one that has a lot of utility for everyone at every phase. And the interesting thing is, not to get too off track here, but I actually feel like I made an effort to make these recordings have something relevant in them as much as possible. The last few, this is less true of, but anyone at any sort of phase in their own spiritual development is going to be able to get something from at least the first 10 or 15 of them, no matter what. So, and even if you're at an advanced spiritual stage, listening to the first one, there's still more to be explored there. There's more marrow to be sucked out of the Kabbalistic invocation at the beginning. In particular, almost anyone can benefit from really, putting their all into that. But even just the exploration of the felt sense experience, you could make a lifetime spiritual path out of that, and in fact, many people do. So I think that answered. Brandy and Kevin said that they are happy about the fact that the Sunchild was explained. Sky asked if I intentionally synchronized the beginning of this series on this date. Absolutely. I'm a magician. That's what I do. Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have started this months ago, but it seemed like this was the right time to begin it. Despite the fact of the inconvenience of there being a major holiday, 2 major holidays right in the midst of it all. Thank you for coming, Robin. I appreciate all 16, 17 of you that are here. And those of you that weren't able to come live, I'm going to try and get this recording. I'm going to try tonight to actually turn it into an MP3, since there hasn't been that much visually other than the presentation of the tarot card images. But I think that people can poke around on the internet and find all those pretty easily. So it's not like presenting something that's never been seen before. So next week we'll be talking about the path of Shin and your experiences with the path of Tao. Yes, Rurik says a beginning is a very delicate time. What's that a quote from? I like it. Dune. Yes. Well, before I start waxing on about various movie adaptations of Dune, I think we should probably call it an evening. It's good to see you all here. Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I'd like to do more things like this. It's there. People need to come to them too. So it's great. It's great that you guys are here. So blessings to you all. Merry Christmas. Happy Yule.